Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're nearing the end of the Bikshu Gita, the song sung by the renunciant, the Avanti Brahmana. We discussed briefly at the end of yesterday's class how the Bikshu, the Avanti Brahmana, is not so much advocating renunciation in of itself or detachment in of itself. He's advocating absorption in devotional service. The consciousness of a bhakti yogi is not to enjoy the material world and not to reject the material world. Our focus, the focus of our consciousness is on Krishna's pleasure. What gives Krishna pleasure and what is not for Krishna's pleasure. And of course, it is a characteristic of the development of pure love that you not only want to give the beloved pleasure, but you also want to give the most pleasure. So keeping this in mind, we're able to properly appreciate the Bikshu Gita, the song by the renunciate. And we are nearing the end of his elaboration on the 6 targets of blame, which are all inaccurate and inappropriate. So yesterday we discussed other people, how they're not the source of our problems. We discussed the demigods in their control of our senses. They're not the target. And we discussed the body or the soul, because some people think they are the body. But even if you understand you are spirit soul, still you can't blame the soul for material problems. And we also discussed yesterday the planets, graha in Sanskrit, planetary influences. You can't blame the stars, the planets, your astrology, because that just affects the body at the time of birth. And then today, we can briefly look at the last 2 of the 6. Karma. Surely it must be karma. That's the fault. But the Avanti Brahmana and the Acharyas commenting on this point out that karma doesn't affect the soul and it doesn't affect the body. The body is just a lump of matter. So how can karma affect a lump of matter? And it certainly doesn't affect the spirit soul. So you say, well, wait a minute then. How is it that we are said to be undergoing karmic reactions? Well, Srimad Bhagavatam is making the point that the karmic reactions are incurred by our misidentification with the body and mind as the self. Contaminated consciousness. It is not the soul that is contaminated and problematic. It is the pollution of the consciousness, which is the energy of the soul, so to speak. So the soul is always aloof, but its energy has been hijacked. And we're getting insight into the real culprit. The misidentity, the false identity is what undergoes the karmic reactions due to our identifying with the external, due to our identifying with the body, with the mind, and material influences, because of that unit, that device, so to speak, of false identification, which consists of the teamwork between the mind and the false ego. Because of that, we undergo karmic suffering or karmic enjoyment. But the we is an illusion, an imaginary unit or imaginary device. Sometimes when we talk about false ego, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Someone who's too full of themselves and arrogant and, yeah, I did this and I did that and I'm so great. And did you hear what I did? Did you? We consider that false ego. But the Bhagavatam is giving us a much more profound understanding of what is false ego. It is, in conjunction with the mind, a co-conspirator. You want to look for conspiracy theories? Here it is. Now, are you going to march? Sometimes our devotees choose various, not most, but a few, choose various causes and various protests that they like to be part of. But as I explained last week or 2 weeks ago, if you want to protest the problems of material nature, why just one march? You should be at it 24/7. Everywhere you look, there's a problem. Why you pick out one? You're surrounded, as Shukadeva Goswami says, by an ocean of faults, and you pick out one wave. Look at that wave. Hypocrisy, denial of liberty, oppression, fascism, whatever you want to call it. Conspiracy. How many waves are there in the ocean? Kalaya dosha nidhe rajan asti heko. There's only one good thing. Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Paramajay. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna. Engaging in glorifying Krishna, you can cross over the ocean, the dangerous ocean of Kali. That's the only good thing. Asti eko mahang. Otherwise, it's a dosha nidhi, an ocean of faults. And here we are picking out one drop. Protest, protest. The Avanti Brahmana is giving us the real conspiracy. It's the mind and the false ego causing identification, misidentification of the spirit soul with matter. So how are we going to protest that? Because no matter what else society does, as long as this fundamental conspiracy is not dealt with, there is never going to be a solution. Material nature will punish you this way, punish you that way, give you false hopes, and then let you down until you start dealing with the real conspiracy. Now you might say, all right, we've gone through the list of those 6 things. They don't have any role? Are you trying to say that we just totally disregard what other persons do, what the demigods do, what the body does, what the planets do, what karma does, and, oh, the last one, time. The Avanti Brahmana says, number 6, how can you blame time when time is a spiritual potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the living entity, the jiva, is a spiritual potency. So how can one spiritual potency harm another spiritual potency? So the acharyas give the example. How can fire harm its sparks? How can cold harm snowflakes? They're of the same category. You know, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Kalosmi, I am time. So in this way, it's a little more subtle to understand this point, but in this way, he's gone down the whole list. He's isolated all the 6 categories of blame and saying, not that, not that, not that. Untick this box, untick that box. So we disregard those 6 things? What am I going to do? I can't blame other people. I can't blame the demigods. I can't blame karma. I can't blame my body. Can't blame this, can't blame that. Isn't this impractical? His point is that those 6 things only assume importance because of the root problem, misidentification by the false ego. Otherwise, the 6 things wouldn't merit any discussion. But because of the main problem, which is outside those 6, then those 6 assume significance. So you see in this way that the bhakti knowledge is very practical. It's not pie in the sky. Oh my goodness, I've got to go around thinking everything, I'm a spirit soul and nothing has any effect on me when it does. Yes, those 6 categories have effect, have significance, rather, because of our fundamental mistake of misidentification, the conspiracy between the mind and the false ego. You read more about that conspiracy in the 5th canto, Jud Bharat's discussions with Rahugana Maharaj, the king. I discussed it in that little book I wrote 25 years ago, Perfect Escape. I discussed the collusion between the mind and the false ego as the network, the broadcasting network, IBN, the illusory broadcasting network. So we get dragged around by that combination. And therefore we waste our time in the material world building up all kinds of temporary arrangements for the body, for the mind. We build up allies, we name enemies, but we don't see what the real problem is. We are all about getting people to see the real problem. We don't want to be distracted into multifarious, endless waves in the Bhava Sindhu, the ocean of material existence. It goes on and on and on. Everywhere you'll find hypocrisy. Everywhere you'll find uncontrolled mind and senses. Because the mind and senses are uncontrolled, there must be cheating. So again, why pick out one wave in the ocean? Srimad Bhagavatam is pointing the finger at the whole ocean of material existence. Protest that. Otherwise, these single issue protests are a waste of time for a bhakti yogi. And it gives people the wrong idea. They don't understand that we're helping them to see the entire problem. That's the difference between the bhakti yogi and an ordinary person with ordinary vision. We're trying to see the whole picture and act in that way. And we're successful to varying degrees according to our spiritual determination and execution. So we don't want to get distracted, and we don't want people to see us distracted. Oh, they've picked out one wave. Congratulations, they're with us. No, we pick out the whole ocean. Of course, what then? Well, some people say, well, that's too much. How can you single out the whole ocean? Better just to pick out one wave and feel like you're accomplishing something. We protested. We picked out one wave. Therefore, the acharyas say that a prime component of political agitation is, or even material welfare work, a prime component is simply false ego. You want to feel that you have accomplished something, you've done something. Your conspiracy between the mind and the false ego wants to feel that we're making an impact. But actually nothing changes. Or it seems to change, but the change never lasts. This is the middle planetary system. There'll always be happiness and there'll always be distress. Always that rotation. You can't get pure distress and you can't get pure happiness, generally speaking. Whereas the lower planetary system, almost always distress. The upper planetary system, almost always material happiness. But we're in the middle. But our false ego wants to feel that I've accomplished something. We've stopped this, we've stopped that. But the way material existence works, what's that? It's like if you can visualize, you have a carpet and somehow or other a mouse got under the carpet. And you're looking on top of the carpet and you see this, You don't see the mouse, but you see, something's running underneath the carpet. So you try to stop it there, and the mouse moves over there. You try to stop it there, the mouse moves over there. So trying to solve material problems by material methods won't work. And we don't want to give people the impression that it works. We want them to pay attention to solving the whole problem of material existence. That's what we're spending our time and energies about. So we are protesting. We're doing the 24/7 Bhakti Yoga protest. We march in kirtan. And we want people to know that our kirtan is not involved with temporary solutions, which are actually no solution. Our kirtan is what? Kirtan, that's it. And that kirtan is for resolving the whole ocean we don't want to distract people into thinking that we are advocating this wave in the ocean or that wave in the ocean. We will be the first to say that there are problems everywhere. There is cheating everywhere. As Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was fond of saying, there are only two classes of people in this world: the cheaters and the cheated. That's all. At one moment, you're cheating me, another moment, I'm cheating you, and sometimes it goes on simultaneously. That's what's happening. What do you mean? There are some nice people, and people mean well. True. Still, when seen through the eyes of knowledge, they're cheating themselves of the great opportunity the human form of life presents. And by not recognizing that all the energies belong to the Supreme, you're a thief. But I'm a nice thief. And I discuss with other thieves how to divide up the stolen property fairly. This is how we assume false morality for ourselves. And then we feel good about ourselves. So this takes some intelligence to understand, but what can be done? Bhakti is for the intelligence. We can't hide from that. Yes, we can tell people, just chant Hare Krishna. Here, have some prasad. Leave it at that. But if they want to understand why a Bhakti Yoga does what he or she does, you have to have some intelligence. There's no getting around it. We spoke 2 weeks ago about in India, during the time of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the beginning of the 20th century, in Calcutta, there was a massive flood. And so various political leaders came to see Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and said, you know, all the money you're collecting to run this mandir, this temple, should go to flood relief. Now, bear in mind that the temple in Calcutta profusely distributed prasad to everyone. So it's not like it's not like they were neglecting the general population while being super spiritual. They had a massive prasad distribution program. But these political leaders were saying, look, you know, it costs money to run these temples and do the temple activities. Why not focus all that funding on flood relief? So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur replied that you are concerned with a little trickle known as a flood that hit Calcutta. I'm dealing with the entire ocean of material existence and trying to stop that. So who is doing more significant work? Now, whether you all understand that you're actually protesting against material existence and doing your part to stop it, whether you understand it depends on your spiritual intelligence. So again, we don't want to give people the mistaken impression that we are allied with this wave in the ocean or that wave, when the waves are endless. You protest one wave, along comes another. You can't count all the waves in the ocean. That's Shukadeva Goswami's point when he says dosha niti. Just like you can't count all the waves in the ocean, you can try. Go down to the water, and where there's some waves, Oriental Bay or something, and try to count them. You waste your time. Similarly, Shukadeva Goswami says you'll never get to the end of the faults in Kali Yuga. You'll never get to the end. But how to cross over that ocean, that is what we should be focusing upon. And that's what the Avanti Brahmana will conclude in his Bikshu Gita, in his song. But before we get to that conclusion, we'll hear his summation after he dispels those 6 categories. And thus, as I said, letting you know that those 6 categories only assume importance because of misidentification. Now we're going to hear about that misidentification more elaborately. So we'll chant text 56. Nakena chit kwapi kadanchanasya dvando paraga parasya yatahama samsriti rupina syat evam prabuddho na bibheti bhutai nakena chit kwapi kadanchanasya dvando paraga parasya yatahamam samsriti rupina syat evam prabuddho na babeti bhutai nakena chit kwapi kadanchanasya dvando paraga parasya yatahama samsriti rupina syat evam prabuddho na babeti bhutai Vaishnavis. No, there is not. Kena chit. By the agency of anyone. Kwa api. Anywhere. Katanchana. By any means. Asya. For him. The soul. Dvandva. Of the duality. Of happiness and distress. Uparaga. The influence. Parata parasya. Who is transcendental to material nature. Yata, in the same way as. Ahama, for the false ego. Samsriti, to material existence. Rupina, which gives shape. Syat, arises. Evam, thus. Prabuddha, one whose intelligence is awakened. Na babeti, does not fear. Bhutai, on the basis of material creation. Translation. The false ego gives shape to illusory material existence and thus experiences material happiness and distress. The spirit soul, however, is transcendental to material nature. He can never actually be affected by material happiness and distress in any place, under any circumstance, or by the agency of any person. A person who understands this has nothing whatsoever to fear from the material creation. Om Agana Chimadandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmar Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the various commentaries to this verse, both by the BBT team and by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we see how, because of the false ego, our bodily covering overwhelms the spirit soul. And therefore we falsely enjoy or suffer. We falsely enjoy or suffer what actually has no relationship with the real self, the spirit soul. Now you may say, wait, this sounds great theoretically, but in day-to-day life, in the real world, come on. The real world involves happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. What's the use in this Bikshu Gita? And at the end of this chapter, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur will comment that someone who doesn't want to hear this song obviously has got a problem in that they want to continue material existence. But someone who attentively hears this song develops detachment just by hearing it, appreciating it. So you may not be at this point in your spiritual development now where you can say, It's all external. I am the spirit soul. The spirit soul is subject to no influences, no material influences. You may not be at that point, but by hearing about it, you arrive at that point. This is bhakti mysticism. By hearing about it, the hard knots in the heart slacken. And of course, when you stop hearing, when you stop chanting, you know what's going on. Those hard knots will reassemble and tighten because you're in the ocean of material existence. And there's only one thing that gets you across that ocean. Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangaparam. Simply by hearing and chanting about Krishna. Our outreach activities, our cultivation, our care for devotees is all about crossing over the ocean. Now, people in the beginning don't understand that. They just want relief from frustration, from dissatisfaction, from a meaningless, purposeless existence. But through the development of knowledge, you start to understand. You start to understand, I'm dealing with the biggest picture. It's not just me and my little external problems, my karma, my enemies, time, my chart, my astrological chart. You gradually start to see that you're dealing with the real big picture. So it's not that we're just mindlessly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, repeating 3 words over and over again, and lost in some kind of delusion, some imaginary fairy tale world. No, we've taken up training to deal with the biggest picture. We're taking up training to deal with reality from A to Z, top to bottom. We're not small timers, in other words, whose false ego gets a buzz because we pick out one little tiny problem in material existence or another. Now, please bear in mind, I'm not saying that persons' perceptions of injustice are wrong. Persons' perceptions of abuse are wrong. I'm not saying that at all. But what we are saying is, okay, let's solve the problem. Recognize what the real problem is, and let's advocate the real solution. Because as long as people think they are the body, you can have so many arrangements that will never be successful. United Nations, world this, world that. Whether on the local, national, or international level, these attempts at solution offer only a temporary respite at best. So the bhakti yogi is big time. He or she is dealing with the whole suite, the whole panorama of material existence. But it doesn't seem like that. If your eyes have no knowledge, it doesn't seem like that. And when the mind is turbulent, it pushes you. Pick out a cause. Pick out one cause. Pick out one aspect of oppression or hypocrisy or conspiracy or cheating. Pick out one aspect and feel good. We know this wave. We got this wave figured out. Oh, congratulations, you got one wave figured out in an ocean of endless waves. Why don't you get to the bottom of the ocean? Get to the bottom of the problem. You can't materially. So again, we are not saying that there is no injustice, there's no exploitation, there's no cheating, there's no hypocrisy, and that no one has a right to feel mistreated or abused. We are not saying that. The abuse is real, the exploitation is real, the cheating is real. But what is the root cause? That is the point. So in this way, we're not small timers who get an ego buzz. We got that wave figured out. You just go down to the ocean. Where do you go here where there are waves? Maybe you're not Oriental Bay, but where? Lyle Bay. Go there. Pick out a wave and feel good. See that wave? I got it understood. What happens a few seconds later, another wave comes, and another wave, and another wave. But that wave that already passed 2 hours ago, I'm onto it. It's foolish. So again, for the third time, we're not saying that there is no injustice, there's no exploitation. There's heaps of that. What do you expect? It's Kali Yuga. We're not saying that persons should feel no sense of injustice, no sense of outrage at the structural exploitations and economic cheating and all political hypocrisy. We're not denying any of that. We're just saying, well, what do you expect? You're dealing with conditioned souls in Kali Yuga. Do you expect something else? If you expect something else, you're an illusion. It's like you go to a rugby match, you go to a football game, and oh my God, they're playing football, they're playing rugby. What's going on here? Protest! Did you see that? I went to a rugby match and they're playing rugby. You come to Kali Yuga, and what do you expect? So Bhakti Yoga is about the big protest. We're not single issue people who focus on one issue. We see the whole ocean, not just one wave. But because people can't understand that, they think, oh, you're inactive, you're dreamy, the happy haris. If you join with us in fighting one wave, then we'll appreciate you as realistic people. Get agitated with us about one wave, and then we'll know you're practical people. We'll appreciate you more. And then what happens? Others who are backing another wave, they get angry. Whoa. The Hare Krishnas, they're backing this wave, but what about our wave? And the waves are endless. So if you want to protest material waves, you better be at it 24/7. You'll have time for nothing else. So we, again, want people to see the root of the problem. Our hearts are pained by exploitation, oppression, abuse, injustice, hypocrisy, lying, cheating. Our hearts are pained by that. As Bhakti Yogis, we feel the pain. But we feel the pain so much that we want to get to the bottom of the problem without a sense of false ego that I picked the wave out of the whole ocean. How great is that? Are you with me? No. We agree with you that that wave is a problem, but they're endless waves. They're endless problems. Are you with us? Are you with us in dealing with the whole ocean? Whole ocean? Oh, you're dreaming, you know? What's wrong with being the body, man? And after the protest is over, you know, it's time for some. So this requires a cool head. Otherwise, someone will, just like the way I'm speaking, someone could take out one fragment and, just see, no sympathy, no compassion for the people. Just pull out one sentence of the whole talk. And often that can happen on social media these days. So I take a risk. All those of you who are listening, I take a risk. Someone can just cut out a snippet way out of context. So again, I repeat, our hearts break seeing the suffering in the world of all types. But how to do something effectively about it without just bolstering our false ego that we've solved that wave. That wave has gone and endless others are coming. Do something about that. So this is why this Bikshu Gita is so important. And Krishna himself is relaying the whole history to Uddhava, such a dear devotee. Krishna said, Uddhava is more dear to me than my own self. So Krishna is presenting this history to him. He's presenting the Bikshu Gita, the song as sung by the Avanti Brahmana. So again, here we are, overwhelmed by the mind and the body, because the false ego has imagined a connection between the soul, which supplies the energy, and the bodily coverings. Therefore, we take on all kinds of baggage that has no relation to us. Remember, 2 weeks ago, we discussed how you embrace the mind. Just visualize yourself embracing your mind. But what else are you embracing? Who knows? You're embracing all the contents that are in the mind that have been embedded by your contact with, your particular contact with the modes of material nature, your karma. So it's not that you're just embracing the mind, you're embracing the contents of the mind and identifying that as you. Now that sounds scary, doesn't it? How would you dare to embrace such a terrorist as the mind? And its entourage, all the thoughts that accumulate in it over countless lifetimes. Yes. Baby, I'm yours. Baby, I'm yours until 1 + 1 = 3. Till the sun and the moon don't shine. Baby, I'm yours. That's the mad embrace of the mind, which means you're embracing its contents. So by all this madness, the pure nature that we are disappears. And we think, oh, to revive my pure nature is going to be so hard. I can't be done. Just let me believe. Let me be a religious believer. That's enough. I'll have the right creeds, the right beliefs, and go on doing like everyone else. It's too much to take on this process of crossing over the ocean of material existence. Too much. But that's exactly what the Avanti Brahmana is going to say in his conclusion. He's refuted the 6 so-called explanations of happiness and distress affecting the living entity. He's refuted that. And shown, as we said, that those 6 explanations only assume importance because of our misidentification. So he's not denying that you don't experience those 6 categories, but he's saying they've only assumed importance because of the problem with the false ego, the imagination. So remember, just by hearing this, you become a bit more detached. The hard knots in the heart start to slacken. Otherwise, you would say, well, this is just too far beyond us, right? That's too much. Sounds good, but who can live like this? But this is the value of hearing. By the hearing process, the dirty things in the heart become agitated and cleansed. Just like in a washing machine, you have that thing in the center, right? It's called an agitator. So that's what hearing in bhakti does. You have the dirty clothes, you put them in the water in the washing machine, and the agitator twists them around this way and that way, so the dirt comes out. And then what do you say when the dirt comes out? Oh my God, there's dirt. Stop the washing machine. There's dirt. Dirt came out. What's this process doing? No, you let the washing machine continue, and then there's the rinse cycle, right? But first, the dirt has to be shaken out. Mundane solutions to the world's problems cannot work because they don't offer any process for purifying the pollution in the consciousness, the dirty things in the heart. They don't offer that kind of process. In fact, more body identification is stressed. Not less. So you can huff and puff and huff and puff, trying for these hallucinatory solutions. But some people will be for you, some people will be against you. Meanwhile, everyone is missing the point. So we'll look at the last verse. A famous verse quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Etam saastaya paratmanistam adyasitam purvatamar maharshibi. Aham tadishyami darantaparam tamo mukundangri nashevayaiva. Very famous verse. If any of our men plan on becoming sannyasis, this verse is recited at your sannyas initiation. Remember that. I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nescience by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. This was approved by the previous acharyas, who were fixed in firm devotion to the Lord, Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in our next class, we will discuss this determination and the execution of a lifestyle and process approved. Remember yesterday, or some days ago, Friday, we discussed the verse from the beginning of the second canto, where Shukadeva Goswami praises the question by Pritchett Maharaj. Your question is approved by all transcendentalists. It's approved, certified by all those who know what they're talking about. This is very important. We're not creating something new with our bhakti. We're acting according to an approved process, approved standards. Not by this foolish person of Kali Yuga or that foolish person, but by the greatest authorities. Who were fixed in firm devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, I'll be firmly fixed in Bhakti Seva, devotional service, because what I'm doing is approved by those who are firmly fixed. This is shelter. This is protection. So we'll begin our next class with that outpouring of determination. I shall cross over. Cross over what? The insurmountable ocean. How do you cross over an ocean that's insurmountable? The endless waves, remember? But you can do that by the authorized process. All right, any questions? Yes. You can leave it on.
There's countless problems, but in the same that we single out four sort of the primary cause of people suffering, regular principles. Is that due to relativity in the problems? Why do we single out four?
He's asking, why do we single out four problems in terms of our vowing to follow the regular principles? As I often explain at initiations, the four regular principles do not make you a transcendentalist. They make you a human being. So by our having to stress the four regular principles, we are reminding persons that it's time to become a human being. I know it's astonishing. As the acharyas explained, those four regular principles knock down the pillars of sinful life. Because those four things are what's holding up the whole skyscraper of sinful activity. If you don't like the word sin, then okay, bad karma. Sounds more with it. We all know in New Zealand, sin, to talk about sin or God, forget it. But bad karma, yeah. Sin sounds very judgmental, doesn't it? You're being sinful. Sounds like someone accuses you of having COVID or something. You're doing sinful activity. Are you carrying some virus? You're being judgmental. So yes, we single out those 4 activities as the pillars of the whole structure of horrible actions and reactions. It's the chanting of Hare Krishna that makes you transcendental. So we pointed out the Bikshu, the Avanti Brahmana, is not simply advocating detachment for the sake of detachment or renunciation for the sake of renunciation. He's advocating immersion in Bhakti Seva, devotional service. So yes, if people, without chanting Hare Krishna, if they would follow those 4 rules, you would see a transformed planet. But guess what? They're not able. Who's able to follow those 4 rules without chanting Hare Krishna? Very rare. Even in India, the land of Dharma, such things are not so common anymore. Such adhering to these 4 prohibitions is not so common anymore. And you know, here in New Zealand, religion died 50 years ago. That's why so many of you, if you tell your parents about the 4 rules, I think it's kind of cute. Sometimes your parents come to initiation ceremonies. It really makes it tough on me because I know what they're thinking. They hear their children in their 20s, 30s, take these vows, know this, know that, know that, and know that. And I can just see them kind of, how quaint, how cute. It'll never last. I mean, after all, those things are part of life. Drinking wine, beer together, going to a pub, it's just part of life, right? Some herbal supplements, even sometimes some pharmaceuticals. Just don't be excessive about it. Only every weekend. Not during the work week. So they think it's exotic and quaint, like something from 300 years ago, time of Queen Victoria or something. So yes, if people would simply follow those 4 rules and do nothing else, you'd see the mode of goodness start to predominate. But you can't follow those 4 rules without Bhakti Seva, without that connection to Krishna. For the most part, it's completely impossible. As Kali Yuga becomes more and more ferocious, you need a spiritual shelter. Now, yes, there are some who can do it for a while, maybe even the whole life, but I'm speaking generally. All 4, not 3 out of 4, but all 4. Just like I know in the yoga world, the Hatha yoga world, the big yoga organizations in the USA, and they've estimated that there are like at least 35 million out of 300 million Americans who are practicing to some degree Hatha yoga. Their big yoga alliances and yoga organizations, confederations have said the number one problem is what? In their world. Yes, promiscuity between the yoga teachers and the clients. So there can be Ayurveda this and Ayurveda that and holistic nutrition and certainly no meat, fish, or eggs, and no dairy. Gambling. What crazy person would want to go to a casino? Alcohol. Oh, it's tamoguna. But so it is a fact that by following those 4 rules, you have dismantled the whole superstructure of ugra karma, pungent activities, destructive activities. But the Avanti Brahmana is not advocating abstention in of itself. He's advocating absorption in devotional service. Remember, we're not about enjoying the material world or denying the material world. We're about engaging everything for Krishna's pleasure. Yes?
And so even in spiritual welfare work, that tendency can slip in of wanting to take credit. So I'm wondering how to really...
She's asking about material welfare work and the false ego. Now, keep in mind, this is kind of an advanced point. It requires some purified spiritual intelligence to grasp this. The sense of even when you're doing something good, there's a sense of I'm the doer. I've done something. I feel good about myself. I've been charitable. This requires some maturity and not fanaticism and understanding. Because certainly, if you were in need of medical help, or I was in need of medical help, or some other kind of material help, we wouldn't just tell the potential helper, "Oh, just go away. This is just your false ego." We wouldn't say that. We'd be very appreciative. So it takes some subtle understanding. That unless you can see the higher purpose of existence and act on that platform, you're subject to giving yourself credit for helping when actually you haven't helped yourself sufficiently, but your life feels a false sense of value. Perhaps a good example is what the environmentalists often complain about. They call it people with single action solutions. But I'm aware of the ecological crisis. I've changed all the light bulbs in my house. What do you want out of me? I've done it. So the environmentalists always argue about this. Some of them say, well, at least they've done something. We've got to start somewhere. Others say they're missing the whole point. The picture is bigger than just changing your light bulbs. And think, because the danger is what? I've changed the light bulbs, therefore what? Huh? I changed all the light bulbs in my house, and therefore I don't have to do anything else. I'm good. I've solved the ecological crisis. When those who understand the ecological situation know that there's a whole list of things that need to be done. Reduce carbon emissions, reduce the livestock industry. So many items, but this single action pacification program is often a problem because people give themselves a false sense of assurance. I'm okay. Never mind what else I'm doing in my life. I use soap and laundry detergent that is what? It's biodegradable and no plastic containers. Now that's good, there's no doubt. This requires some subtle intelligence. I myself, as much as possible, I try not to have to use things in plastic containers. It's very difficult, but I try. But if I thought, oh, I have purchased some hand soap that's not in a ordinary plastic container, or at least it's in a plastic container that can be refilled at the refill place around the corner, right? I've done it. I'm good. No, I wouldn't think that. I know it's just a drop in the bucket. But the danger is you think, oh, I'm okay. That false sense of, I'm good, I've done what I could do. What more do you want out of me? Let's go on with life. That's the false ego, giving itself assurance. I'm a doer. I've helped. Again, though, if I had a broken arm and someone came to fix it, I wouldn't say, oh, you're just acting on false ego. I would be very thankful, but I wouldn't think that my problems of material existence have been solved. So this requires a cool head at this point. And we don't want to be fanatical. We want to be comprehensive, and that requires a purified intelligence. If you look in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we don't expect every newcomer to look in Adi Lila Volume 1 of Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see there's one verse, I believe in the 4th chapter, there's one commentary quoting the acharyas where it's got several thick paragraphs quoting all the different types of false ego activities, which are actually not for Krishna's pleasure. They include like religiosity, charity, philanthropy, this, that, the other. You read the list and you'll go, woo. But you see, such presentations by the acharyas are keeping in focus that everything should be for Krishna's pleasure. That's the standard. Not everyone can see that standard. It takes some purification. So we don't want to fuel fanaticism. At the same time, we do want to preserve the understanding of pure bhakti and its inconceivable effects. Yes.
Thank you for the class today. My question is about controlling the mind. And when Krishna is speaking, Bhakti Gita to Arjuna, Arjuna is such a great devotee and very intimate friend of Krishna, and he is very close to the station of Krishna. But still, he's saying that he's having difficulty controlling his mind. I'm just wondering what hope is there for us. So Arjuna is having very difficulty controlling his mind. So what hope is there for people like us?
First of all, the question is, Arjuna in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita says, Krishna, the mind is so turbulent, to control it is more difficult than controlling the raging wind. But what does Krishna say next? Forgot that part? Because your question is that since Arjuna, such a great personality, has difficulty controlling his mind, how can we? But what's the next verse? Huh? Translation, please, for those who are not erudite as you. Huh? Yes, Krishna says it's undoubtedly difficult to curb the restless mind, but it's possible by so it's possible. And then remember, you have something else going for you. You're following Krishna in his most merciful appearance as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Otherwise, it would be impossible in this age of Kali. So yes, your question is, as I always explain on Nityananda's appearance day, if you think bhakti is impossible, ordinarily you'd be right. But you have the Panchatattva, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They make the impossible possible. Otherwise, yes, I would advise you to give up. I would tell you, really, guys, bhakti is sweet, but, it's just not going to work out. It's unattainable. But I can't tell you that because Parama Karuna Pahundwijana Nitai Gora Chandra. Those two brothers are Parama Karuna, extremely merciful. Sabha Avatar, they're the essence of all avatars. Sabha Avatar, Sar Shiromani, Kevala Ananda Kanda. They are propagating the Kanda, the path of Ananda, pure, non-material happiness. So you might remember my saying that on Nityananda's appearance day, I often say, you can write down all your excuses why you can't practice bhakti. And you'd be right. I would agree with you, except for the presence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda. They are Krishna, especially Mahaprabhu himself is Krishna. Of course, Nityananda is Balaram. They're Krishna and Balaram breaking all of Krishna's rules in Bhagavad Gita about who can perform bhakti. Okay? Yes? Think in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, think of him as what?
Think of him in fact.
Oh, Mama Nusma Yujam Cha, fight and think of me. Yes?
So how would he like us to think of him in what way?
Don't you read the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, in all activities, be fully conscious of me. Act under my protection. You know how to be fully conscious of Krishna? You act in a way that's pleasing to Krishna, for Krishna's pleasure. That's the whole lifestyle of bhakti, acting for Krishna's pleasure. You've acted for so many other persons' pleasure in your life, right? To get your PhD, you had to dance according to what your PhD supervisors wanted, right? In so many ways, you had to dance to someone else's music. We're dependent. We're not independent. So choose your music that you're going to dance to. You have to dance. Choose your composer. It's either Krishna's illusory energy, giving you the music to dance to, or it's Krishna's internal potency. So you choose. Last question, yes.
How do we guard against complacency and devotion?
She's asking, how do we guard against complacency in devotional service? Well, we can talk about it. Talk to someone who's not complacent. What do you think? On that note, we shall end. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.